Hi, everyone. We will go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining and taking this opportunity to be able to learn more on leadership development and developing capital strategy plan. So, as we're going on, I wanted to first introduce myself. My name is Dr. Alice Leon Stevens. I have my doctorate in prevention science. I also have my master's in clinical and mental health counseling, and also with over 23 years of experience in prevention and intervention um, skills development. My dissertation was on the impact of COVID and how families, disadvantaged families, are affected by COVID. So the goal as we're going through is to be able to see what we can do and what strategies can we develop, because we know that there is a ripple effect not only now as a result of COVID, but also past events, whether it was epidemic, pandemic, or natural disasters. It definitely shows a historical repetition of ripple effect. So we would like to be able to go through and explore that. I wanted to just do some housekeeping in case that you guys may not know the process. There is the moderator chat. So if you have any questions or if you want to be able to have conversations with each other, you can just go in and make some points or ask some questions. And as we're going through, we do have one activity that we will break you guys up into smaller groups. So we're gonna go on. For me, I was raised in a family. I'm originally from St. Lucia. I'm gonna move my mask for a few seconds since my colleague who is right next to me. So I was raised in St. Lucia, and being raised in a family where working with individuals who may be exposed to challenges, who may be going through domestic violence, whatever the case was, my family's household was the haven for the community. Individuals who did not have food, my parents ensured that we cook a multitude of food so people could stop by and just get whatever they want. And through that, we ended up participating, my entire family participated in the National Emergency Management Organization. So if there were hurricanes or huge floods, then we would be able to go out and help out within the community. So working with emergency preparation, that is something I grew up with because from a child we were exposed to it. So in the corner there with that circle, that's me over here, and everyone else is family members. So moving on to COVID, we know as a result of the challenges we've been facing for the past few years, individuals, COVID has impacted a lot of families. It has impacted the economy. It has impacted education. When you think of the inequities, it has developed a larger gap for individuals that are facing those challenges. There is also an increase in homelessness or where relationship challenges as well. So especially being women that is in leadership, our goal is to be able to figure out what can we do, what strategies can we develop, and how can we analyze those problems, not just the current problems, but to be able to analyze in the next 2 years, the next 4 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, what are some of those problems that may be able to develop. So when we think of risk management, this is where it comes in. So understanding it, part we history has demonstrated, and research also shows that the pandemic happens every 10 to 30 years. In regards to epidemic, natural disasters more frequently than that. But as we go through, we also recognize that the increase in psychological sicknesses, the increase in risk is way greater. But children overall, children have a greater resiliency. They're able to bounce back. They're able to cope or adapt to what is happening. And I'm giving those basic information so we can transition to the strategy development. When it comes to adults, it is more difficult for adults to be able to adapt to the current changes. So understanding the continuous or the greater chance that we will end up seeing a major challenge. We have hurricane season coming up soon, and individuals may end up we do not know what other challenges are coming, but we do know that the other disasters, for example, as I made mention of hurricane season, and usually around that season, individuals lose their material possessions and some other locations as well as individuals' lives. So we need to be able to find out what we can do to help with that development. So as we're working and we're trying to understand what needs to be done, we need to be able to review what is the connection. Where exactly, when we think of the impact within with the families, we think of the impact within the communities, also the impact within the government level. Where is the connection? And many times with those connections, it comes with the services we provide, the policies that are created, and the collaboration between those agencies and the sectors within the community overall. So and then when we think of those things, when we recognize those connectors, it is what do we want to be able to develop from that. So we may want to be able to ensure individuals develop resiliency. When we look at the stipends that were provided to families, that in itself provided a small level of economical comfort for families. It might not have been sustainable, but it provided temporary comfort. The survival measurements. What are we gonna be looking at? Are we providing solutions that will temporarily heal or fill in the gaps? And once those measurements are removed, then what are the effects or the risk? What is the increased risk factors for the community and the population we service? So when we're thinking of resiliency and sustainability, we need to be able to look at our program development and how it will be able to provide a long sustained. So a great example is last year, January 2020, when the pandemic became more known. I was at work and I was talking to my colleagues and I'm like, hey, you know what? I am analyzing that this will be getting out of control and it will be getting into the United States. And I'm like, okay, this feels as if it's gonna be a hurricane within a hurricane. And I told my co-workers, hey, I would suggest for you to go ahead and get anything that your family is in need of and that you will be in need of for the next 3 months. And they were laughing because I'm the prevention specialist and other individuals were in different fields. And they were laughing like, no, you're just bringing it. It's like you're stretching it. It's not as big as it is. I'm like, okay, well, I'm still going to the store and buy what I need. And that was in January. As time goes by, within 2 weeks, it ended up spreading. And by March, we had an emergency shutdown. And during that time, they came back and they're like, Alice, back in January, you predicted everything that would be happening. How exactly did you do that? It was strategizing what exactly could the worst of that event be. And is there any other junctions? When you look at the pathway, is there any other way for that to be regressed or be prevented? And as you continue to analyze, if all the paths that you have analyzed shows that the greatest risk is a result of mass infections because it is new and it is difficult to be able to manage, as of right now on the knowledge, then we know that the prediction will be, the risk will be greater. So as a result of that analyzation, that's what I came up with. And through there, when March came, I'm like, okay, if we continue analyzing this, then we can foresee there will be food shortages. We can foresee that there will be homelessness. We can foresee that individuals, there will be an increase in crime and an increase in other challenges, because we if one it becomes a ripple effect. If we look at one thing and we're not able to find solutions for that one thing immediately, because we are unable to recognize or understand what it is, then the risk will be greater. So that was one of what we did. So as time continued going on, I wanted to use that opportunity to be able to focus on my dissertation on how the 2020 pandemic has impacted family and compare it with past disasters, and why Katrina is still, individuals who went through Katrina is still being impacted by the event. So these are some of the things that as we continue developing, we want to be able to understand. So with the impact of the ripple effect of COVID, we have individuals, we know that there's an increase in mental health challenges. As a result of that increase, children, CDC released last year, April last year, that girls between the ages of 12 to 17, there is an increase in 51% in suicide attempts. And we know that females are more likely to be able to express what they're going through and be able to share. But for the males, it demonstrated a 4%. But is that as a result of undocumented or unreported statistics by the guys or by the males compared to the females? But regardless of what the statistic is, we know that there is an increase in suicide, an increase in depression, an increase in isolation as well. We also identify that there is an increase in physical health challenges. Individuals were not able to go out or take the walk that they were able to get. Those who were going to the medical providers were not able to continue seeing the medical providers. So either their medical situations or conditions got worse, or they gained or developed a new medical condition. When it comes to household income, there were a larger percentage of parents. Number one, as the pandemic, many people were not able to continue to work except for essential workers. But in addition to that, many individuals also lost their jobs. Parents ended up having to withdraw from their jobs, because either they had to care for an older parent or for their child. There was some sacrifice that needed to be made. And as a result, some individuals have lost their household. They were not able to manage or pay their bills. Some individuals invited all the family members to stay with them because the management of the house was too high. There were also individuals that had to separate from the house, because now individuals, well, let's say the spouses or the partners, they were always at work, but now that they had to live together, it became toxic living underneath the same roof. They also had change in daily routines, and those changes within daily routines, it either impacted them negatively or positively. Some of the positive responses I'm going to pull up in the next few slides to be able to show what some of the data from that collection showed. They also had changes within the schools, individuals who were going face to face, especially individuals with learning disabilities or individuals who had difficulty adapting to virtual platforms. It also impacted their schools. It also impacted the adjustment to doing attending school virtual. And in addition to that, the ripple effect to attending school virtual, it was where the same schedule for some of the various schools were required, where students had to be present from 9 in the morning or whatever time, depending on the school location and the timing, to the same time. And for us, we had a lot of students that caused an increase in anxiety and depression because they had space for adaptation from face to face to virtual was not transition. It was just, okay, we're gonna change from face to face and transfer everything to virtual, and we're gonna leave the same platform that we use. But as a result, when we think of strategic planning, we need to also adjust the psychological impact, because the brain will need time for it to be able to adjust, for it to better understand and process what is happening. And if we don't do that, then create a space of being overwhelmed, getting burnout, or being withdrawn because we are so overwhelmed we do not want to participate in that. And then that connects to the emotional support. Some individuals were able to gain emotional support from families and friends. We had individuals where the neighbors were donating food to them, and they also went to the pantry. So when we think of emotional support is not only from loved ones, but also from the community overall. What support is the government providing that would be able to fulfill an emotional need? And that emotional need, when we connect it, that was one of the areas of the stipend. Another area was being able to hold off on mortgage payments or providing support, financial support for the rent. While this might sound like a physical support, because that physical support, when it is received by the receiver, is transferred to or transition into an emotional support. So understanding how a physical support can transfer to an emotional support, and how an emotional support can be transferred to a physical support. And then as we're going through, if you have any questions or if you need clarity on anything, please let me know. And if I am speaking too fast, also let me know, because I am very passionate about what I am discussing. And sometimes I know I can take a plane or jet and just take off. So going back to understanding those ripple effects, and it can just take one of those ripple effects or those impacts to transfer into something else. So mental health can transfer or develop into physical health and so forth. So understanding those impacts. So for everyone here, this is we're gonna take a few minutes. Being women in leadership, what problems have you noticed that have arose due to the impact of COVID? We'll take a few minutes for you to be able to comment. If you'd like, we are interactive. So if you feel better having a conversation live, we can just click you and put you on live. So let us know how would you feel in answering that question. So being a woman in leadership or woman overall, what are some of the problems you have noticed or that have impacted either yourself or a family member or co-worker, and that is a result of COVID? Okay, either let's see. I am seeing if there's any questions. I am not seeing any questions, so we'll just continue. So, for some individuals, being a woman overall, and plus being a woman in leadership, some of the challenges that individuals have communicated that they are recognizing is the ability to either manage their lives, especially if they have families or children or spouses, whatever the category that they fall into. So being able to manage that component of their lives at the same time going and being able to go to work. Because when you think of a great example is when you think of doctors, you think of mental health therapists, they have to be able to provide the support within their household, but then they also have to go to the workplace and provide a multitude of support, ensure that the services and the strategies that are being offered, even the policy, because of COVID, a lot of agencies, especially the CEO, the directors, they needed to develop the policies that reflect the current situation. We had a few, I had a few friends within the medical field as well as the mental health field that had mental health breakdown. Some of them had to be in psychiatric care. Other individuals, it caused a major health impact on them. And some individuals were also exposed to COVID as a result of their work. So that in itself rippled into the impact of providing care for their families as well. And the problems that continue to develop in some of those areas is the transition or the adaptation, because things are continuously changing. And the same way children are able to adapt, as I did mention earlier on, it is the opposite to the adults, where it becomes more difficult. So just imagine if you have two tedious responsibilities, then it becomes more challenging. Okay, we have someone who shared, Danielle shared, one problem that came up is the closure of daycares. We had a lot of employees who had to manage even more between work and home life. Our management handed out laptops, which allowed us to work from home. Those who were in the field were able to work on a flexible schedule, and that is great. What I'm hearing, Daniel, that is happening is the ability to identify a problem and the ability to provide a solution towards that problem to help reduce on possible risk factors. So that is one of the great strategies that has been utilized. Thank you for sharing. Another area, another component was, as you spoke about the daycares, I'm going to connect that into the public education or just the K to 12. One of those other challenges was parents who were also teachers, and they had to be present both for the child and the students overall. And it was, I believe, I might be quoting the state wrong, but either Philadelphia or Maryland made the adaptation to ensure that the teachers were not getting the burnout for a short period of time. But it was a problem that they identified, and they were trying to figure out whether it was by pushing school back or being able to start school late. And that was one of the strategies that they were using. So now I'm going to go in, I'm going to share the data that was collected around for the pandemic. And this one is the overall impact. So for the overall impact, there were family impact, personal impact, and then we focus on the family resiliency, because we know that overall there's a lot of difficulties going on, but we wanted to find out what are some of the strengths that people gain as a result of the pandemic. So for the family impact, as we previously mentioned, there was the educational impact, the economical impact, the mental health, the physical, and all the impacts. And the other impacts we will just touch as we continue going. Those slides and the subcategories will be expanded. So I'm not gonna leave you guys hanging. We're gonna add some more points to this. And for the personal impact, individuals were impacted mentally, but we also saw the ripple effect where if a parent was impacted, when you think of transference stress and transference trauma, that was one of the areas of being able to transfer the difficulties that parents were going through. You went to work, or child was going through. You went to work, you had mental health challenges. Now you came home, whether it is getting angry or being emotionally disconnected because you are burned out. Different challenges were able to develop as a result of that, that ripple into the family impact. And then we spoke about the physical health, but there was also insight learned from the individual about their family. And then we had the family resilience and coping. In that area, what support did the family gain? We spoke a little about that previously. What the family creativity, were there any things that the family were able to develop, um, and were there things that they were using already that they strengthened on? Were there family resources that was utilized? Because when we think of the ABC module, for anyone who is familiarized with that, it is to be able to identify what are the stressors, how the family is coping with their stressors, and what resources are out there, for us to be able to help sustain the family and develop coping mechanism. So with that, then they also had the family strengths. So what were some of the strengths that the family were able to develop as a result? And now we're getting into the juicy juice. Um, this is where for the family impact, we had the economical impact. And with the economical impact, we know we can see it everywhere, the increase in homelessness. As a result of all those findings, what we did is we created a food drive. And yes, we ended up there with other organizations that were delivering food, but it was mostly to schools, to students who were going into specific school districts. But what we started doing is that we started to go to Rose Hill Community Center. If anyone is familiar with the project, is we collected like a vehicle SUV filled with food, and we went throughout to be able to deliver food to homeless individuals who did not have transportation. The food that we got, we ensured that they were edible food that they were able to consume within the next 3 days, because typically once a week we would go and we'll get it and we'll deliver it to various locations, and we had prime locations that we were delivering the food to. There is about 3 or 4 motels that are utilized for homeless individuals on Route 13 in Newcastle. And there is underneath the bridge in Wilmington. And we also went on the east side to be able to deliver food. So we pack our SUV in the community, lift up the truck, and the community came to just get what they needed. So that was one of the ways we were able to help provide some services to individuals who were either facing homelessness or if they had some form of negative impact as a result of the pandemic. And some individuals said they didn't have change, but one of the things that we saw was when we asked individuals through the questionnaire, the quantitative analysis, did they have any mental health impact? Majority of them said no. But when we did the qualitative analysis and we interviewed them, majority of them said yes. So what we found out, it was the understanding of what they thought mental health was, which was either losing your mind mentally or having some form of diagnosis, but they were not able to identify, like going through depression or what are the signs of depression, understanding adjustments and how adjustments can lead to mental health. So when we had that conversation, many of them did share that these are some of the challenges they're having. So when we think of strategizing, we might use a certain formula. For example, for us, if I had just gone in and only analyzed or collected the data using quantitative, then it will show that a greater percentage of people would not have been impacted mentally. But because we wanted to analyze them using qualitative method as well, it did show that there was a great impact. So that is also one of the ways of looking at for strategizing. It's what exactly is the community we're servicing understanding, not what we are understanding. Because for me as a prevention scientist, I will be able to understand almost every different component that you put in front of me. But if I go and I work with another individual that does not understand, I will need to be able to adapt to their understanding and change my jargon and my wordings to be able to fit them so they can have a better understanding as to what it is. And that's why being able to look at, and when we think of problem solving, how exactly are we meeting the community and ensuring that the solutions we're providing is meeting the community needs and not what we think that the community is in need of. Um, and then as we continue, we gonna look. We spoke about the loss of jobs and the reduced income, but the education impact. One of the ones I found was a lot of individuals stated that their children had difficulties in connecting with a school admin, which we understand. But as a result, as time went by, schools were able to deliver, as you said, laptops and different equipment. Some schools also provided internet for the students to be able to connect. But also with those teachers and the admin, they also had the stressors of losing loved ones. They had stressors of connecting with loved ones. Either the loved one was in the hospital and due as a result, they were not able to connect. So they had an increasing stressor, which created a ripple effect onto the delivery of services. So seeing it's like a spider web, how each one connects to the other. And then we have the other impacts, and the other impacts were where families drifted away. Either the families, many people was thriving for them to be able to have a Thanksgiving, have dinner, have the things that they usually go and do, or have the grandchildren come and visit the grandparents. It was not the same. So as a result, individuals became comfortable within their own space, or the emotional connection. If they had some form of problems within the family already, it only strengthened that and caused a drift within the family. There was also a change in communication, not only on the negative, but also a positive, because some family members were able to identify an increase in communication. They were better able to have some time for them to play. A lot of family actually shared being able to spend more time with their family compared to before, where they were just working. Some parents had 2 or 3 jobs, and they were not able to be present, or demanding jobs. For you guys being in demanding positions, the time you had available for your family may have been limited, or it may have been increased. But one of the other areas that some people loved and some did not was working remotely. For individuals who did not like working remotely, it was either they were constantly interrupted with their day-to-day functions, or especially being women, that day-to-day function ended up integrating with their work life as it was discussed. So the flexibility when working remotely was not as great as the flexibility that the workplace itself had provided. And definitely we know the limitations on socialization as well. And for the personal impact, if you guys have any additional comments, please don't be shy. And I love having interactive conversations. So whatever you want to type that is relating to this conversation, please do. For the personal impact, individuals had they were agitated in the moment you wake up, or you're so overwhelmed and so exhausted, being around each other also and having multiple things over and over. They had people who were looking at or checking their emails like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. The boundaries were no longer there, when you could have just left work and probably work a little after work hours at home, but being able to cut off and say, hey, you know what, this is time, and I'm going to close my computer and spend the rest of the time with my family. But as a result, those barriers were not as strong as when you once worked within the office. There was also, we spoke about the increase in loneliness in the city of Wilmington. We It came to our understanding that some of the seniors, especially those who were living in the high-rise apartments, they were not able to get the help and the support that was needed. And one of the cases that was disclosed to us was one senior who was in a house and somehow was forgotten by society, was not able to get food delivered to her home. And when one of the community members went to visit her, she was literally really small. The way they described her, she was extremely, extremely small. And they had to call the ambulance for her because that's how small she got. And she had remained within that house without food for a long period of time. And that is here in Delaware that those gaps and those challenges are happening. So as a result, my company, we started creating food baskets for seniors within the community that we know of, but we would connect with community members. So the Wilmington City Council used to come over to our office when we have food for delivery, get whatever bags, because they knew or connect with other community members and get those bags and deliver it to them. So that was one of the ways that we actually helped bridge on those gaps. When it came to the mental health, also, it was where a lot of individuals, we were home, we were working from home, but for us, we actually moved within the heart of the community where majority of the challenges were predicted to increase. So in August of 2020, we actually moved to the east side of Wilmington to ensure that we bridge one of the gaps that could possibly expand into a more difficult and more challenging area to service if we do not provide the services now. So when we did that, one of our process was if someone contacted us for mental health services and we may have identified that they were either in a domestic violence situation or their life one way or the other was at risk, then we would make the worst assumption that the abuser, whether it is the spouse or the child or the parent, whatever the case is, or the friend, the list can go on. We made it where we made it mandatory for them to come to the office for them to be able to get the service. And then when we analyze them, we're like, okay, are you safe at home? What is going on? Then we're like, okay, we can continue doing telehealth. We had a few cases of individuals that were in domestic violence situations and they were in the household with the abuser. And their way of getting help was to be able to come to the office for them to get that one-on-one support and to get the help that was needed. So the impact itself is not just identifying the impact, but what solution can we provide? And based on those solutions, how long will that solution be sustainable? Because if the solution will be sustainable for 1 month or 2 months, then we're looking at a greater impact, because usually when a solution is gone, then that person either falls back to where they are or they pick up from where they were and it continue to increase. So for individuals who may be working within the education field, one of what that we're doing now at Holistic Elevation is for us to be able to analyze what could be the worst challenge that students are facing. And based on that worst challenge, what could possibly be the solution? And that discussion falls into our next session that will be held at 1:50. But what can we do to be able to help reduce on the gravity or the expansions of those problems? And for the resiliency, we had family resources individuals stated that they use a virtual platform for them to be able to find support. So you know that they have the Facebook groups, a lot of big Facebook groups developed. We had individuals that joined Zoom because there were groups on Zoom as well. They had individuals that became BFFs with education platforms because they either needed the resources to help their students or their children, or they did not know the information themselves, so they had to get additional help. And we spoke about the family strengths, also the support. With the support, they had an increase in unemployment benefits. We knew of individuals who on a monthly they got $10,000 from unemployment, and as a result they were able to buy a car that they ended up using to be able to go ahead and do Uber. So now they are literally having a sustainable income as a result of the pandemic. So the support that they used was able to help them to strategize. Individuals also started their own small business to be able to strengthen their family economical challenges. Some individuals got outside help. Some individuals, as I made mention, they got help from the food pantry. They got help from their neighbors and friends as well. Some other individuals, they ended up being creative within their family. So they started doing yoga, and some of them started planning family activities. So when we think of policies, all the information I have provided, it sounds like, oh, we know that already. Like, okay, but now we're gonna do a hands-on activity that you are exposed and you have a lot of challenges that is being faced, whether it is within your community, your organization, or in office. And we're gonna separate and break into a few groups. We have a few more minutes, 20 minutes. So we're gonna take like probably 10 minutes to participate. And I want you to be able to explore what are some of the possible policies. And when I think of policies, when we talk about policies, it's not only within government, but how can your company make changes for adapting to what current challenges is being faced right now. So let me go into groups, and I'm just gonna group you guys. I'm gonna let you know I am still learning about the groups. So hopefully I won't lock anybody in any group. And one of the groups may end up having two. So for individuals in group 1, you will do economic impact. Individuals in group 2, you will do education impact. And individuals in group 3, you will do mental health impact. And you will discuss what are some of the policies you can develop to help. You can create or come up with your own platform, whether you're in a community, which can be a school, or whether you're in an agency, which can be anything, or whether you're in government. And I'm starting the groups right now, and we will see you there shortly. Okay, let me put you in the group. More permission is needed. View participants, right notes, please share file, set caption. Okay. Okay, let me add you to the group. Oh, I'll put you in group 1 because they need it. Okay, I don't know if I messed up really badly. Okay, so first off, I want to apologize because some of you guys may have been having conversations and then you were transferred to the main room. I want to say I am very, very sorry because I was trying to figure out if there was a way to smoothly transfer you to let you know, hey, we have a few more minutes, but I did not see that option. So, on the psychological part of having conversations, I do want to apologize of doing an immediate transfer. But I was able to join the group and I heard some really, really great conversations that were being developed. And as you continue going through and having those conversations within your workplace, within your home, continue to analyze what are some of the strategies you can develop within your current environment to help increase on the safety net or the protective factors for the population that you are servicing and you are working with. So when we look at strategy building for we have the prevention framework, and for me specifically in the work that we do, we would like combining the strategic prevention and intervention. Prevention will be able to analyze what are the current risk factors. It will be able to focus on what are some of the problems that we're facing right now and what would the possibly worst problem be. But then when we think of the interventions module, which is the public health module, the problem is existing already. And we're trying, it still falls back on the prevention, and we're trying to prevent that problem from escalating into something greater. So, what strategies we're going to develop? But that strategy for the public health module will only focus on that current issue you want to analyze. But when you combine intervention and prevention together, you're not only focusing on that one singular challenge you're seeing, but you're actually analyzing on a broader spectrum of what's happening. So, these are some of the areas that we'll be going through and will be, well, not right now, but we would like for you to be able to analyze as you continue in your journey and your work. So I am looking forward to seeing you guys in the community, and I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful next session. Bye. You are welcome. I'm going to end the session for everyone.